Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be watching in the world. I'd like to welcome you all to the very first acoustic guitar talk. My name is Simon Candy. Some of you will know me, and I'm sure some of you will not. But I am a musician and a guitar teacher, and I run a website called acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. And as I said, this is our very first acoustic guitar talk live stream. And there will be regular ones of these where I'm going to be featuring special guests. And we're going to talk all things music and acoustic guitar. And today's stream is all about how to create music with scales on guitar. And to help me with this and to provide much wisdom in this area, I have a very special guest with me today. He runs one of the only music theory sites online that is specifically dedicated to guitars and guitar players. He has a YouTube channel that has almost 250,000 subscribers, and personally, he's delivered for myself some of the most profound moments I've had as a musician under his tutelage. I've had the pleasure and privilege of being trained by our guest today many times over in Chicago at music events. And I speak of none other than Tommaso Zillio. So I'm going to bring him into our chat now. Good.
I believe it's man, so nice to see you. How's it going?
I believe it's afternoon for you.
It is afternoon for me, and I think it's early morning for you. Funny how it goes, eh?
Yes, it's a little earlier than perhaps what I'm used to seeing. I'm a bit more of a night owl, but it's fine, and it's an absolute privilege to have you here, Tommaso. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
The pleasure, it's all mine, Simon. I was really looking forward to having this chat with you because Simon waxes high and poetic about how I have been training him. But every time I watch Simon, I learn something new because it is only as acoustic guitar tricks. And I love it. And I have always something new to learn when I watch you. It's great. So I'm really looking forward to our chat today.
Awesome. So am I. And speaking of such, we are going to be talking about scales and using scales to create music on the guitar. And I sometimes think it's in a perfect world, it would almost be better to learn how to create music first and then learn scales, because I'm sure you would agree, Tommaso, that we don't actually need scales to create music on guitar. We can in fact create music without scales. And when we do learn scales, it's very easy to fall into the trap of just learning scales for the sake of learning scales, playing up and down scales, working on technique, and sort of missing the whole point or a large part of the reason why we learn scales in the first place. So I often think that a good approach would be to learn how to create music first, learn scales second. Now, that's in a perfect world, that's probably not going to happen, but certainly to have, areas of your practice regarding scales to just purely work on the art of creating music with them. So perhaps you've got some thoughts on that to get us going here, Tommaso.
And scales are just a tool among many to create music. And for some reason, it came out that you have to learn scale or play a lot of scales to make music. But I totally agree with you. You don't really need scales to make music. And even when you do, even when you want to use scales, there are better ways of using them than just playing them up and down. Because see, scales are just sets of notes that work together, no more, no less. Okay, so you can have your C major scale, and somehow everybody starts thinking that the C major scale needs to be played in order, meaning one note after the other, and always C to C. Because I played another scale. Anyway, so it's always seems to be like that. And why? Why we should play those notes in order? Why we should follow the order of the notes? There is really no reason. I like to think of scales as a bag of notes more than a string of notes. Okay, so I can take only the notes I need, I can play them in any order. I can put them together, and I can do whatever I want with those notes. It's just a specific set of notes that seems to sound good together, or they seem to sound with a specific feeling together. But we don't need to use scales. We could do music in a completely different way, okay? And indeed, the most important thing in music is not the scales. The most important thing in music is rhythm. Without rhythm, it's debatable if you even have music, okay? If you don't have a kind of a rhythmic feeling, how can we call it music? Okay, I mean, I know that some avant-garde players, avant-garde composers can create music without any rhythm, completely random. But let's say, for the time being, that we need rhythm to make music. Okay, so how many notes do we need to make music with rhythm? None. None. We could just use noise. Okay. Okay, that would be something. Okay. Then if we start from here, it's easier to make music with scales because you just add the scale on top of the rhythm. You pick 1, 2, 3 notes from the scale and you start playing them with this rhythm. And then now it's much easier to make music. You already have a solid bass, a solid rhythmic bass. You already have something that feels like a groove, and now you can make music. Okay, so I don't know. Completely off the top of my mind, okay? Didn't prepare anything for this specific thing. So, okay, so the perfectionist among the audience, please, it's an improvisation, okay? It's a starting point, though, okay? I don't need to play the whole scale. I don't need to play the whole scale in order. So that's something established, okay? We don't need scale to make music. Now, do they help? Yes, but they help only if you know how to use them. Because if the only thing you do is to play the scale up and down, up and down, up and down, you're just doing guitar gymnastic. You're not doing music. And guitar gymnastic may have its uses. I'm not saying no. You get faster, you improve your technique. No, I don't want here to make a big crusade against shredders. I love shred, so no, no problem there. But you don't have to do only that, and you want to know different ways of playing a scale. Okay, so what will be a first starting point? Okay, a starting point would be this. You take your scale. Okay, I was talking about the C major scale. I could use any shape. I'm just taking this one. Okay, I can play the scale in order. It's just meh. But again, even if I inject some rhythm in that, I can find something interesting. I'm pretty sure you guys know this one. Okay, it's the C major scale, going down, okay, in order. This sounds like music. Why this instead does not sound like music? And the answer is that the melody here, this melody here is a very recognizable rhythm. Now, while the scale it's flat in rhythm now. So rhythm is the first thing. But then again, you don't want to play the scale in order, great. So you have to learn to play the scale out of order. How do you do that? Okay, you start creating those little things like this one. Okay, C, A, B, G, A, F, G, E, F, D, E, C, D, B, C. Or if you want, I'm taking the highest note of the scale, C, and I'm going down 2 notes in the scale to an A, and back 1 up to B, and down 2 to G, and back 1 up to A. So I'm going down 2 notes, up 1 note, down 2 notes, up 1 note. Okay, so you can do that, and it doesn't sound too much like a scale anymore, okay? Or at least it's a step forward. It's not perfect yet, but it's a step forward. I can invent several other things, okay? I can invent thousands of those things, okay? Okay, or yeah, or stuff like that, okay? So the idea will be, if you really want to use a scale, if you really are gung-ho about using scales, the first thing to learn to use scale melodically, okay, would be to start to learn the scale in a different order, not just going up and down, okay? Another way to play the scale, play every other note. Ta, ta, ta. This is still a C major scale. I'm just playing every other note. Completely different feeling. It doesn't, if you play these, nobody will say that this sounds like a scale anymore. And the only thing I'm doing is, again, playing every other note. Those are all different ways of taking a scale and not playing what people think is a scale. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's a matter of having different ways to play through the scale, as you say, using sequences. And if you, I liked your idea there about playing every other note, because you basically are more or less playing an arpeggio there without realizing it. If you don't know what arpeggios are, you're actually doing that by playing every second note. I think it's getting in there and creating with the scale sequences. I wonder what your thoughts are on, we were talking about the importance of creating music with scales, which is great, but and not needing necessarily the scale to do that. But what is then the point of learning the scale? I mean, if we can create music without scales, why learn a scale? Maybe you got some thoughts to offer on that, Tommaso. Do I not need to learn scales?
I think I do. Well, after all, I have an entire course on scales and modes, so I think I have
Yeah, I think you
ideas on how, on why you should learn scales. I mean,
I figured you
I'm
might.
not against scales. That's the thing. I'm against using scales, playing them up and down, because it's boring, and that's pretty much the only thing. Scales, though, are useful. Think of it this way: if you are a painter, okay, and you want to paint with color, okay, you study a lot about the theory of color when you study painting, because you want to understand how colors go well together, okay? So you get those palettes, okay? You learn how to put colors together, you get a palette of color, okay? Colors that go together really well. Now, I know nothing about color, okay? I see 16 colors most likely, okay? I have the Windows 98 palette in my eyes. If you ask me to distinguish between violet and mauve and something else, I'm like, what? But I know some people can put them together and the result will look pleasing to me, okay? And scales are the same thing. Scales are just, if you want, pre-made palette of notes. Notes that will work well together and will make interesting sounds when you play them together, okay? So, do you have to know scales? No. You could be a genius and understand how those notes come together completely intuitively. There are very few people like that, but they do exist. Or you could study scales and get those pre-made palette of colors and use them either as they are or as example to create your own. Okay, so for instance, the major scale sounds happy, or at least it doesn't sound sad, no? Right? The minor scale does not sound as happy. opposed to the major. Okay, and the minor will go, the major will go. Different feelings, okay? And those are just the major and the minor, the C major and the C minor scale. Nothing, I'm not doing anything fancy right now, okay? It's literally simple things. Those are different palette of feelings, of sounds. Those sounds create specific feelings. You may decide, you may listen to this and think, oh, the major or the minor sound is exactly what I need for my song. So why reinvent the wheel when you have already a scale that does exactly what you need, okay? Or you can think, neither of them work for me, so I'm going to use something different. Great! There are many more scales, you can listen to those, or again, you can create your own, okay? See, that's the other thing. People see scales as if they are set in stones and you cannot change anything, but the reality is that if you pick 5, 6, 7 notes, however you like, you can call them a scale. There is not an international board of scales at which you have to apply to get your scale approved. Okay, there is no such a thing. There is not an international music theory police department that will come and knock at your house and during the night and arrest you because you used a set of notes that was not approved by the aforementioned board. Okay, it doesn't happen. You take the notes you want, you put them together, and a great exercise instead for anybody. Okay, beginner and advanced, for anybody who wants something interesting, you pick 6 random notes. So you have your chromatic scale contains 12 notes, okay, or your guitar can play 12 notes. Sure. You pick 6 of those randomly, completely randomly, okay? Just write down 6 of them. And then you start trying to write music with only those 6 notes, okay? And you have 2 main ways of doing it, okay? And those 2 main ways are melodically and harmonically. Melodically is if you play this note one after each other, and harmonically is if you play the notes at the same time, so together, so they can ring together and interact with each other. Make sense? Now, let's pick 6 notes, shall we? So I'm gonna do everything in real time here. Again, I haven't prepared this specific example, so I'm gonna pick an A, just because I have the open string, which is gonna be useful, okay, for that. I'm gonna pick an A, a B, an F sharp, let's say, maybe a D. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need another couple, a G maybe. And why don't I pick also a D sharp? Something like that. So it's not a scale we already know. Okay, so again, my notes are A, B, D, D sharp, F sharp, G. Okay, that's my palette of color. I pick it completely randomly. Okay, you may like this feeling or you may not like this feeling. That's okay. If you don't like it, pick different notes. If you like it, use those. Okay, bit of an avant-garde horror movie sound, okay, but it's something you can do. So again, you can work on these melodically if you play them one after another, but they don't have to be in order, okay? So I'm keeping the A on at the bottom so I can hear. That could be a suitable melody for a movie, for instance. Okay, for kind of a science fiction horror movie, something like that, mystery, okay? Or you can work with them harmonically. Now, when you work with them harmonically, you want to play those notes together, We could stay here and talk until we are blue in the face about all the possible combination chords, etc. But my first idea is forget about all that. Just play a few of those notes together and hear how they sound. What can go wrong? You make a bad sound? So what? Okay, so you start playing those notes together. Okay, so again, do you like the sound? Great. You don't like the sounds? Great. Anyway, change your notes. Okay, you start exploring this kind of thing. I am working with a scale. I have no idea how this scale is going to be called, honestly. I don't think that, again, A, B, D, D sharp, F sharp, G, I don't think it's any kind of scale that I know. It could be a subset of some more strange mode of somewhere. I'll have to check. Okay, so it may have a name, it may not. It's a scale. I made it or I rediscovered it. Again, I don't want to claim ownership of that. Okay. No, please, nobody start composing music in this and call it a Tommaso Zillio scale, okay? Something I came up right now. I don't want my name associated with that.
The mode of Tommaso.
Yeah, no. Okay. And you start playing some notes together with that. So some of those notes together and hear how they sound. They sound pretty unsettling. I picked them to not be too consonant in this case. Okay, if I picked a major scale, it would sound, of course, completely different.
Cool.
But I think the main message here is this. Forget about all the rules for a moment. Music theory is not made of rules, okay? Music theory is made of suggestions. So forget about the rules, okay? Pick those notes and play them together. Hear how they sound, okay? Forget if the intervals are thirds or fourths or fifths, if they make triads or other things, or if they make nothing. Forget about naming all this stuff. I don't know why people spend time asking, what is the name of this chord? What are you gonna do with that once you have the name? Nothing. You have not made any new music. Just take those sounds and play them, okay? From there, some ideas will come out.
Absolutely.
You may like it, you may like them or not. Now, if you find yourself consistently not getting good sounds, maybe you're picking your scale too randomly. Then in this case, pick one of the scales that already exist, or one of the scales that sound easier on the ear, major scale, minor scale, modes of the major scale, all this kind of thing. Do the same with those. But again, forget about chords, rules, harmony, progressions. At the beginning, just get the raw feeling of the scale. Okay, use the scale this way. Is this the only way of using the scale? No, but it's a great starting point and it's good ear training. And then you can always go more in depth on how to use specific scale. Again, I have a course on that. Okay, you can also go more in depth about how to use the scales, how to all the theory creates all these kind of other ideas that you can use. And the ideas that theory creates, again, are not restrictions or rules. It's just, hey, we found these interesting ways of using those sounds. And if you want, you can try them, okay? As opposed to just trying to put them together by ear. But again, nothing bad with one thing or another. The important thing is that you guys feel free to do whatever you want with those sounds, okay? Music theory, again, is not made of rules. Every time you start thinking, oh, I cannot do that because music theory, no, that's the wrong way of using music theory, okay? It's completely the wrong way of using music theory. It's like using a hammer to put down a screw, okay? Wrong tool, okay? Or like using a hammer to open to open a can of beans, okay? Wrong tool, okay? You should use a can opener, not a hammer, okay? Makes sense? So that will be an idea, okay? Simon, you have some ideas regarding all that? Because I know you use harmony a lot. It's your style using harmony and chord melodies and all
Sure.
these things.
Yes. Well, I tend to. I agree with everything you've said. I think it's great because it's totally been anything but here's a scale pattern, here's the fingers to use, and etc. Because it's all just purely about creating music. Yet the scales do, of course, provide us with form and understanding, and they develop our ear because we can hear music, how it's grouped, the notes together in a major scale or a minor scale or some mode or exotic scale or whatever it might be, or pentatonic scale. But I often think a good way, if you're thinking what is a particularly good way to get started with playing a scale on guitar, I would suggest playing on a single string. So you can, if I play a C major scale starting on the C note first fret on the second string, and I can work my way up. I mean, that's very easy to play, even if you don't play guitar. It wouldn't take you too long to play that scale. And when you see the scale on a single string, you see the relationship of the notes clearer. It's a little bit more like on a piano. It's a little bit more linear. It's just on a single string, and you can see that there's a relationship there between the notes of, a tone, tone, semitone, or on the guitar, 2 frets, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, and back down we come. So I think on a single string is a good way to begin. And I also think it's a great way to play, even if you're a more advanced player or intermediate player, because often we get stuck in just playing scales up and down a position, up and down vertically on the guitar. We're up and down, up and down, up and down. Quite often we don't think to move horizontally up and down the fretboard. So while it's very simple, it's very effective in getting this way working a little bit more rather than just up and down vertically. But I think, understanding the harmony of the scale and realizing that the C note in the C scale sounds lots of different ways within the context of the key. It depends on the chord at the time. So how does a C note sound in the C scale? Well, give me some context, because I can't answer that question otherwise, really. So droning an open string is, as you were doing there, Tommaso, is a great way to hear the sound of the scale. And I mean, okay, I'm in the key of C here, and we don't have a C open string to drone, but we have other chords in the key of C. We have D minor, we have E minor, we have F, we have G, we have A minor, and we have a B diminished chord in there. So I could drone, for example, the low E string and play the scale. And you can hear a really Middle Eastern sort of sound when I do that. Now you think C is a little bit of a dissonant sound there against our E string. I'm implying an E minor chord here, okay? But of course, I'm not going to play the E minor chord necessarily and then try and play the scale. That can be done, but that's getting into more chord melody stuff. This is more just droning the low E string and playing around. So I'm not sitting there just playing up and down the scale. I could begin with that just to hear how this sounds against the E note. And now we're starting to train our ear and hear how the scale sounds in a particular context, rather than just think of it technically and so forth. So I could take another route from another chord in the key of C here. So perhaps I play an open A. Now those notes change when I hit the A string. C is now a little more in, it's more consonant than what it was against the E. So that note is now different, but we haven't, we're essentially in the same key here. And you can just play the notes and just, if you're not sure what to do, just try and mix the order up a little bit, or think rhythmically, play some notes longer, play some notes shorter, and just listen, just let the sound come to your ear. You're training your ear to hear these sounds. So you've got to allow the time for them to soak in. And it's a good idea, I find. You're a little limited with droning open strings, of course. But if you go to YouTube and you punch in single chord backing track, you'll find plenty of single chord backing tracks, A minor, C major, whatever. And it gives you a single chord, just a vamp on a single chord. And you can hear how your notes sound over the top of a single chord. I think that's a great way to train your ear, and just listen for what sounds in and what sounds out. And what sounds out is not a bad thing. We need drama in music. If everything was in, it'd be pretty boring. It'd be like watching a movie, nothing happens, everyone's happy, everyone remains happy, and we all live happily ever after. We need the drama, we need the tension. So these sounds are good if we can use them correctly. And as your ear develops, you'll learn how to use them. What you play now can sound completely wrong to your ear, but you can do the same thing as your ear develops and start to hear it and be able to resolve the tension and make it work. So for example, if I come back to my E string here, I'm listening for which notes of the scale sound more in with the chord. Certain notes will sound like landing points. Other notes will feel like you're traveling somewhere. So you're either arrived or you're going somewhere. So here, I'm on my way. I'm arriving. I'm home. We can hear the tension there resolving. A little more dissonant there. This wants to move up to the B note, but we're not even concerned about the note names here necessarily, or getting caught up in this works over here and this works there. It's just, how does it sound? I mean, a C note, any sound is good to my ear. It's context that's needed. So if I play a C chord, that's a nice sound to me if we resolve it. So anything can work. We've just got to open our ear to hear these things and purely focus on that rather than get caught up in technique. And I think naturally people work on technique with scales and sequences and things like this, and patterns and visualization, and that's all good, but you've got to balance it with actually working on creating music. I think another way that's great in developing your ear is to use your voice, is to sing. Now, I'm not a singer, and I know that Tommaso is not a singer, so we're not about to punch out some duet here.
Don't even try. Don't even try.
Come on, Tommaso, you can give us a rendition of Canada's national anthem.
Sure. It will not sound like that. No, well, yep, perfect. Like the voice is a great way to do it. Again, my voice sounds like you just stomped on a mouse. Okay, whee! Okay. So, but I am more or less in tune, and I stress the more or less. Okay, I'm saying that because I want anybody in the audience to know that if your voice is horrible like mine, presumably Simon singing voice.
Oh yeah.
Presumably because I never heard him sing, and I don't know if Simon ever
There's
heard him sing. So.
Good reason for that.
Yeah. we could make a contest. Anyway, who has the worst singing voice? Anyway, but even if your voice is horrible, it's still a good tool. You don't have to use it in public. Okay? You can use it in the privacy of your home, okay, and use your voice and sing a melody on top of the chord. And even if it sounds with if you have an horrible tone of voice, you can still make the pitch heard, so you can still create music with that. And that, by the way, it's a great way of using a scale to make music, because instinctively you will use the scale. That's the other interesting thing. It's scales are not artificial. Scale is not something we invented. Is that we realized that, for instance, for the major and the minor scale, when people sing, they naturally tend to go toward the same kind of sounds. Pretty much all culture in the world, it doesn't matter where you're born, but everybody uses some form of pentatonic scale, major or minor, mostly the major. So at least the major pentatonic scale seems to be hardwired in your brain one way or another. Some cultures invent the major scale and the minor scale, or other different scales, and at this point it becomes more culturally dependent, but you still instinctively will use a scale, and you will typically use scales typically of your culture because you've been hearing them all your life. So using your voice, it's an automatic good way to make music with a scale, and you're using your full musical inventiveness because you're not limited on finding the right sound you're searching. You simply sing it. Okay, that's a great idea. Another thing you can do, I want to connect to what Simon was saying about the note changing feeling, etc. Because sometimes we want to put together melodies and chords. Okay, and the question I get all the time is, what is the right chord for that note in the melody? And the answer is any one of them, because any chord can support any melody note. So let's do this little exercise. Okay, I'm gonna take the G major scale on the first string of the guitar. Okay, just the G major scale. So it's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Nothing strange. Then I'm gonna take the G major chord. The G major chord is made of the notes G, B, D, and I could play those three notes on the first three strings. So I could have these here. I can find the very same three notes here and here. Sorry, here and here. G major chord, okay? And I can take a second chord, a D major chord. The shapes are similar, the position is slightly different. So I'm gonna find the D major here, and here, and here, or here. Okay, it's not super complex if you know your chords. If you don't know them yet, don't worry, you'll get there. But again, trust me, it's not super complex. So the idea is this: I'm gonna play the G major scale. I could play the G major chord under here. But I can also play the D major chord if I change the first the note on the first string. So rather than playing this, I'm playing the G note on top. So now this G note can be harmonized by the G chord or by the D chord. How about the A note? Well, I can harmonize it with the D chord, and the A note is in the D chord, so it will work. But I can also play a G chord and just change the top string to an A. And it sounds quite lovely. The B note, it's in the G chord, but I can also play a D chord and change the top note to the B. This now becomes a B minor chord, but it doesn't matter. I thought of it as a D major with a B on top. Okay, C note. The C note is not in the G major chord, is not in the D major chord, but I can put it in either one. I can take the G and change the top note to C, or I can take the D, well, it's better to take this one, and then change the top note to C. And it sounds like a D7. And so on and so forth for all the notes. So, whatever little melody I have, I can play or even I can use any of those two chords, G and D, to harmonize those notes. I can harmonize the whole thing with the G major chord. Okay, this is only G major. Or I can use D major for all the notes. Oops. G. Okay, or I can mix and match however I want. And this is just two chords, and that's the G major scale. So the G major chord and the D major chord over the G major scale. So, can you guys imagine how many possibilities we have here just with those two chords and just with a major scale? And I've used the two simplest chords in that scale, okay? So, the thing is, you can literally invent whatever you want, okay? Some of the chords I play right now, since I changed the top note to fit the note I want to play, are not triad, are not seventh chord, but are something different. Okay? Good. I don't have to give a name to them. I don't have to use complex theory for them. If I like the sound, I can use them. Period. Simple as that. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I think that's great. Absolutely. A comment on the singing and playing. I know it can feel a little, you feel a little silly doing it perhaps, or, you think, singing, we're using that term very, very loosely. But you can hear famous musicians. Listen to George Benson playing. He's singing along to most everything he plays, and you can hear where that music's coming from. It's got to come from within you. And if you think, well, I've got no music in me, I can't hear anything, then you've got to install that into your brain, your ear, your mind, so that it's going to come out of your fingers. And singing along with what you play is the key to that, or very much a good approach to doing that, because I always think of it a little bit like I'm installing things into my brain so that then I can reverse the loop, if you like. So I might play the scale. So you're hearing a note, you can connect your voice with the note. So it's really the note coming into your ear, if you like, but you're installing all these things. These are all getting sort of, cataloged, if you like, in your mind, and you're developing your ability to hear music, and you're seeing how it looks when you play it on the guitar. And then it starts to shift or turn, where you start to hear it and your voice starts to direct where your finger's going, rather than your fingers sort of, showing your voice where to go. Like, okay, if you want to go up, ba, do, ba, do, da, ba, you can start to hear where the next note, or where you want the next note to be. So you can just start by playing and pitching to what you play. And it takes zero time, because you're going to be playing notes anyway. So if you're going to play, I don't know, a riff of some sort, why not sing along with it? Like, you're going to play it anyway. It doesn't take long. If you sound really bad, you don't think you're in tune with it, it's only going to get better. And, nothing's going to happen. You'll be fine. You can do it on your own. You don't have to be doing this in front of anybody. And you will start to hear music, and you'll start to be able to hear that here and connect it with your fingers on the guitar. And I think most people already do what I'm talking about here with their voice. We hear a melody, we can sing it with our voice. I mean, if I got someone to hum me happy birthday, I'm sure you could do that. It's already in there. You've got that there. So you use your voice. Now, this is the voice when we're playing guitar. It's our fingers doing it. So if our voice knows when to go up and down, and even just when you hear something, you can, at least in a sort of, half-assed way, sing it back if you don't sing, then you can train your fingers to do the same thing. So it's not something someone has and someone else doesn't have. It's something that you can absolutely train into your playing. And I find when I'm improvising and I'm just not liking what I hear, or I feel like I'm just doing rehearsed lines, or just falling into the sort of just going through the motions, I'll bring my voice into it, because immediately that changes what I do. And I think it also has a very large rhythmic element, because your voice is phrasing things particular ways, and you can sort of interplay between your voice and your notes. So it's a great thing to do. I don't think I did that for a long time, but you can do it from day one, and you're going to be playing notes anyway, so just hum along with them. You can be very discreet with it. You can just hum. You don't have to belt them out. You're not singing. You don't care about the quality of it. I had instructors at school, fantastic players, just phenomenal players, who would sing along with what they're doing, and couldn't sing to save their lives. It's not about singing. So it's just pitching, just matching your voice. I've got no quality to my voice like a singer would have, but you want to be able to, and if it gets a bit high, particularly for us males, just sing it the octave below. And you'll get good at doing that. You'll get better at it. And that's, again, working with the ear and hearing hearing music in your head, and not just hearing it, but being able to get it out. Because sometimes people have the frustration of hearing music but not being able to get it out on the guitar. They can hear stuff in their mind, but they don't know how to express it on the instrument. So this is a good way to connect both those things, so that you can play the music you hear. And ultimately, I think the bottom line with music, if we could just summarize it in a sentence, it would be play what you hear in your head. If you can do that on demand, you've got command of the instrument. Absolutely.
I'll go out on a limb here and I say that the whole purpose of music theory is to take you through all those sounds and ideas and scales, chords, chord progression, etc., so you can hear them.
Absolutely.
There is exactly zero value in learning this stuff mathematically, in a sense. Meaning, if you can talk about tritone substitution however you want until you hear them, until you know how they sound. There's no value in that, okay? The whole point is playing. What I suggest to all my students is that every time you learn a little thing, music theory, you learn a scale, a chord, whatever, play it. Put it in a chord progression. Try, fail immediately, fail often, until it sounds good. Until you find out context where it sounds good. If you don't know where it sounds good, ask me or ask your teacher, or find out some examples from whatever you are studying. But play those things. There are so many people, and you have a YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel. We both get email from everybody in the world asking us questions. There are so many people who are completely confused about all that because they're thinking about this in a mathematical way, if you want, in a purely theoretical way. I don't like the term music theory, incidentally. I should call it music practice. But they're telling me, but what if I use a different modular scale and I use the tritone substitution? Okay, have you tried playing it? Because this will tell you immediately if it works or not. And it's never the way, and it's never a question of if it works or not, or if it's right or not, or if it's legit or not. It's, does this express the feeling you want to express? Okay, because music is not a place where there is right or wrong, period. It's right for the feeling. Okay, because there are no rules in music theory, and I keep repeating that. At a certain point in music theory, we thought there were rules. Okay, it's not that this came out just because of a misconception. Some music theorists were thinking of it this way, and we took down every single one of the rules those music theorists wrote. We make good music that people like to listen to, so not just cats on pianos or noise stuff, but we make music that people like to listen to, breaking every single one of those rules. You hear them in all the movies you've seen in your life, because the music we hear in movie soundtrack, it's actually pretty advanced. Okay, from this point of view, they broke all the rules because they wanted to have a new sound. So that's how you get a new sound, break a rule. Okay, so the point is, when you break the rule, you express something different than what people before you wanted to express. And now it's up to you. Do you want to express something similar or something different than other musicians? And saying something similar, it's not bad. Okay, there is nothing wrong in composing music that is not absolutely, completely groundbreaking and original, if that's the music you want to write. Okay, okay, there's literally nothing wrong. You don't have to be always at the edge, at the bleeding edge of harmonic research, okay, and do things that have never been dreamed before with microtones and stuff. I mean, if you like that, do that. But don't do that because it's intellectually stimulating. Do that because you like the sound. Otherwise, you just create a lot of music that you don't like, okay? The point of music, again, is not to make math or research. The point of music is to make music, okay, to communicate feeling, to make stuff you like. There are lots of songs that I love that use harmony so simple that had been discovered 400 years ago before Bach, and everything was already know from about the specific harmony for the specific songs. And I like them. I still like them. But I don't have to have something newer if I like the song. Okay, it's not that if since they use the major scale, I don't listen to them anymore. No, I like a lot of songs with a plain old C major scale. There's lots of good music still to be written in the major scale. Okay, so don't discount the old things just because they're old. At the same time, don't feel trapped by the old things just because they're old. Okay, you want to explore. The whole point of music theory, the point of studying music theory is because you may not have thought of those ideas before. Okay, after all, musicians have been onto this for hundreds of years. So musicians in general, the whole community has a lot of experience, ideas, things you can try. Okay, because the opposite, what happens if you don't do that? What happens if you don't study at least a little bit of music theory is that you start to repeat the old things without knowing you are repeating the old thing, and that's a waste of time. Okay, okay, it's not wrong, it's not a big problem, but it's always been a pet peeve of mine that all the people that say that music theory is gonna destroy my creativity then make exactly the same kind of music. They take the same three chords and they make exactly the same kind of music, all of them. And I'm like, guys, first of all, you are using music theory, and you're using a very, very limited subset of music. If you study a little bit of music theory, you will get more ideas. Okay, so it can boil down just to this. Naturally, most of us Western listeners, let's say, okay, will use major and minor scales instinctively when writing our songs, and we will use chords from the major and minor scale too. Okay, studying a little bit of scales, since the topic is scales, and studying the chords in those scales and studying what you can do with those scales will give you new sounds. Will you like those sounds? I cannot possibly know, okay? But you will know, okay? You will know if you like them, and if you like them, even if you find just one scale that you like better, this could become your scale, okay? I'm just thinking right now of Yngwie Malmsteen discovering the harmonic minor scale and then playing pretty much all of his repertoire on this scale. Okay, some people don't like that because he's using always the same scale, pretty much, but he likes it and he uses it. Okay, or Santana discovering the Dorian scale and playing pretty much all his solo on the Dorian scale and a few on an harmonic minor and all these kind of things. You find the scales you like; those become part of your style. Those become part of your sound. And you may like the scale that other people liked, great. Or you may like a scale that nobody else liked yet, and you can do something new on that scale, great. But if you never learn a scale, how are you going to do it? Okay? And again, like you were saying before, it's kind of a balance. You want to study scales. You don't want to get prisoner of scales. You can make music without scales, but having the scales also helps you, okay? So it's kind of a balance. It's not only one side or only on the other. You want to have both halves of the thing to make it work. You want to study your scales, but you also want to keep remembering that you have to make music with the scales, not play the scale up and down.
Yeah.
Or at least, that's how I see it, okay?
Yeah, I think you made a good point that, music theory, if it's all you're going to learn, is exactly that, theory. You've got to connect it to your instrument. So visualizing how music theory looks on the guitar, chord shapes, scale patterns. And then you've got to hear how that sounds as a result. So it's that connection, the three things. It's the theory, the fretboard for us as guitar players, and the ear. And, if I learn any music theory concept or I teach any music theory concept, it's going to go through the process of, okay, here's the theory, but, how's that sound? Because we're all about music here. And how's that look for us on our instrument? I mean, for a piano player, it's going to look a certain way. For a horn player, it's going to look a certain way. For a guitar player, it's going to look a certain way. So we've got to have a balance there as well in learning theory concepts, and being able to create music with them. So perhaps a good time here, Tommaso. I do believe you have a free resource available if people are wanting to, get started with exactly that, music theory, but also relating it to the instrument.
Yeah, I do. I have this free ebook called Beginning Music Theory. And Simon, I think you have the link somewhere. Thank you. So, if you know nothing about music theory, or if you know something about music theory, but you want to make sure that you have all your basics covered, and you have not left any hole in your knowledge, that would be a good place to start. It's a completely free ebook, so you spend nothing. It's not that long, but contains exactly the few things that you want to study at the very beginning when you start learning music theory. Okay, so if you guys are interested on some of the stuff I was doing today, you guys want to see, if you are confused about when I was using chords or scale, or if you got most of it but not all of it, this free ebook would be exactly the best place to start studying all that. It will make sure that you know everything in a gradual way, so it doesn't feel too hard, and you can be absolutely sure that you're not leaving anything forgotten or missing in your knowledge.
Awesome. Excellent. And I have checked that out myself, actually, and it's fantastic. So I would highly recommend. Being great for, ways to communicate music theory to someone who's coming from pretty much ground zero. I also have a free resource I'd like to let you know about today, related somewhat to what we're talking about here. This is an ebook audio, and it's basically a way of playing scales on your guitar that's a little bit different to perhaps the traditional way that you might play scales. There's so many ways you can play scales on the guitar, way beyond what we've just been talking about today, of course, because there's only so much we can cover in an hour. But this approach, even though if you read the title, Fingerpicking Riffs for Acoustic Guitar Soloing, the concepts in this book are just as applicable to electric guitar players. So don't think that it's not for you because you don't play acoustic guitar or you don't fingerpick. But the basic concept is pentatonic scales and open strings, and a way that we can play pentatonic scales and create riffs and lines within the pentatonic scale using open strings mixed in with our fretted notes, not sort of in the typical open position where you often do get that with open string melodies and so forth, or open position melodies, I should say, but in a less traditional way. So the book has over 30 riffs relating to the pentatonic scale with the open strings. Examples, there's audio to all examples. And it's not just learning a bunch of riffs, because that alone does not really do all that much for you. You'll learn the concept in this book so that you can use the approach yourself in your own playing. So you can check that out on my website. You can see the URL there, and I'll paste it in the Facebook chat for anyone over there at the moment. Okay. So with that said, I'd like to thank you very much for giving us your time today, Tommaso. It's always great. Obviously we know each other, and we have experienced several times over in Chicago, and I've learned a lot from you. But it's fantastic to be able to bring you onto my YouTube channel here and have you give us your wisdom on music theory and scales. And I think your website is fantastic. I don't think there's any other website online quite like it in terms of being very specific for guitar players. And your courses are fantastic. I've certainly learned a lot from them and would highly, highly, highly recommend them. And you can check. You're very welcome.
Everything is reciprocal here. I mean, I think you're a great player too, and the courses you're putting out right now are absolutely great, and I've learned a lot from you too. So it's more of a kind of a give and take relationship here, not me just teaching you at all, okay? Because more than once you surprised me with some of the stuff you were doing, even in theory. There were at least a couple of times in the past when you were rearranging. I remember you were doing that acoustic version of I can't remember the name of the song, that additional song. You did it 2 years ago or 3 years ago in Chicago.
Was it
And
Somewhere Over the Rainbow or
no,
no?
Sonny Boy, maybe.
Oh, Danny Boy.
Danny Boy.
Yeah.
Good. And a couple of the chord changes you were doing there, I had to sit down like, wait, what did you just do? So I had to try to remember, figure them out. Okay.
The
It was like pretty
rehabilitation, I think.
interesting. It was pretty
Yes.
interesting. So, but yeah, so if you guys are listening to this, go and check out Simon's website because he has a lot of interesting things. So, and also the pleasure of being here is absolutely mine, Simon. Thank you for inviting me, and
Yeah.
all the best for these series of videos and series of interviews that you're doing right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tommaso. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone watching. I know we had a little bit of a technical issue with YouTube, but there will be a replay of this on YouTube, rest assured. And you'll be able to see some links to Tommaso's website, Facebook and YouTube channels in there too. So thank you, Tommaso. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's been a lot of fun, as always, learning a lot. And I hope everyone has got something from our little chat today. And I look forward to seeing you in the next acoustic guitar talk. All the best, guys. Cheers.